Yes, it seems to still work. Hey everybody, welcome to the Mana Leek. I am John as always, and it's time for another set review of Streets of New Capenna, a 3-color gangster set with a magical substance called Halo that's not alcohol or a drug. Anyways, we're going to go through all the cards in the set. We're going to start out with the gold cards here. As a quick note, the grades over here, Twitch chat right now can click on them if they would like. It's not going to influence my grade, but they can highlight what they want. We're going to talk about where we would be happy to pick these cards. It's typically going to talk about pack 1, but as always, as I have always said over probably 7, 8, 9 years now, it hasn't been that long, but many years, grades don't matter. Listen to the discussion. The grade is a way to just have like a nail in the coffin of the talking about the card. What matters is the talking about the card. A couple other quick things about the grading scale. Please remember that 6th through 8th pick are extraordinarily real picks that are probably going to end up in your deck. You only pick 45 cards total. So don't get upset if I say something is 6th through 8th. That probably means it's almost definitely making my deck. Wheel is where we start to get into bad, and even then they may not be bad. Other quick notes, things have been crazy with our landlord selling our house and us buying a house, so I'm actually looking at a lot of these cards for the first time ever, so that'll be fun. As always, remember these are my opinions. You can have your opinions down in the comments. It's meant to be a discussion, I suppose. But let's get started with Aven Heartstabber. Aven Heartstabber is blue-black for a creature bird assassin at rare. It's a 1/1 flyer. As long as there are 5 or more mana values among cards in your graveyard, Aven Heartstabber gets +2/+2 and has Death Touch. When Aven Heartstabber dies, mill 2 cards, then draw a card. So this is the blue-black, I think white sort of archetype of wanting 5 CMCs, 5 different CMCs in your graveyard, which seems horrendous because you can't control that. You might think that you can, but you can't. You can try your damnedest to build your deck with looters and a variety of mana values. Spoiler, you don't get to build your deck with a variety of mana values. You build your deck with what cards are good. That's it. So you can't control this. It's nice if it goes off, but you cannot in any way, shape, or form control this. So we basically have to rate this as a 2-mana 1/1 flyer that when it dies draws a card. That's not awful. That's not horrendous, but it's certainly not the rare that I want to have in my deck. This seems like a pretty low pick to me. I'm talking 6th through 8th, I think. Like, I would play this in my blue-black decks, probably. It's okay if we never get it to go off, but that's about the best I can say for this. It's unfortunate that this is going to be so wildly inconsistent. It's going to kind of go into a lot of the stuff I don't necessarily like about limited Magic these days, because sometimes this is going to be a 3/3 flying Death Touch for 2, which is nuts. And a lot of times it's going to be a 1/1 flying Death Touch for 2. So 6th or 8th pick for this, not the rare I want to see in my packs. Up next is Black Market Tycoon. Black Market Tycoon is red-green for a creature cat rogue at rare. It's a 2/2. At the beginning of your upkeep, Black Market Tycoon deals 2 damage to you for each treasure you control. Tap, create a treasure token. What? Why? Now, I don't necessarily know what all the archetypes are, but is killing yourself an archetype? Now, it is just a mana dork, so like the card's not bad. It is a mana dork because it's a 2/2 for 2, and you just tap to make that treasure token when you're going to sack it. But why is this part? That's weird. Anyways, 2-mana, 2/2 mana dork is going to be good. Like, as much as I'm weirded out by that first paragraph, this is still like a 3rd, 4th pick for me. I love mana dorks, and I'm sure that red-green will love a mana dork. It's just you're going to need to make sure you're using that treasure token. Otherwise, probably not use it unless you can really justify the 2 damage for the turn. I don't understand this first paragraph, but sure. 3rd, 4th pick for me. Again, not really the rare that I want to see in my pack, unless all the rares are this power level. Up next is Body Dropper. Body Dropper is black-red for a creature Devil Warrior at common. It's a 2/2. Whenever you sacrifice another creature, put a +1/+1 counter on Body Dropper. Black-red, sack another creature. Body Dropper gains Menace until end of turn. I believe black-red something is the sacrifice deck. We'll have to see if there's any sort of threatens or whatnot to steal stuff. I know there's a bit of tokens and things kicking around, and this is a... this is a sack outlet that exists. 2 mana is pretty expensive, but I think the second counter on this creature already makes it pretty decent. Third creature even better. This seems like a decent pickup in the 6th through 8th pick range. You're not going to spend a super real pick on this, but this is probably going to be your common sack outlet for the sack deck, should it come together. Up next is Brazen Upstart. Brazen Upstart is red, green, white for a creature Elf Shaman at uncommon. It's a 4/2 with Vigilance. When Brazen Upstart dies, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Doesn't seem great. 4/2 for 3 is okay, although it's some of the hardest mana costs to cast. It'll be easier in this set for sure, but we've had 4/2s for 2 and a red. Red, green, white. Vigilance, it has to die, and you get to do that effect that I don't think we really have a name for. I don't know, this seems super filler to me. Like, if I am red, green, white, I'll play it. But I'm not going out of my way for it, so really on the far end of 6th through 8th, I think. It's weird that this is uncommon. Yeah, this feels like a common, but anyway, 6th through 8th pick and probably pretty low on the 8th side there. Up next is Broker's Ascendancy. Broker's Ascendancy is green, white, blue for an enchantment at rare. At the beginning of your end step, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control and a loyalty counter on each planeswalker you control. It's Citadel Siege again. This is a very good card. You should probably get into Bant for this. It says each creature. Pretty stupid. First pick it. Get yourself on into Bant. Not much else to say about that. Up next is Broker's Charm. Broker's Charm is green, white, blue for an instant at uncommon. Choose 1. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn. It deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. Instant speed pump fight. Pump bite. Pump bite. We don't really give fight that much anymore. It's always bite these days. Right then and there, I'm picking this card relatively highly. Choice 2, if you don't want to fight, you can destroy target enchantment. Perhaps they have a Broker's Ascendancy. Or draw 2 cards. You are so far ahead that you can't even imagine needing removal. Why not draw 2 more cards? Very good card, super high pick. We're talking like 3rd-ish. I'll take like slightly more consistent removal over this and bombs over this, but this is a pretty high pick in the 2nd, 3rd pick range. Up next is Cabaret Ascendancy. Cabaret Ascendancy is red, green, white for an enchantment at rare. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature or a planeswalker card, you may reveal it, put it into your hand. If you don't put a card into your hand this way, you may put it on the bottom of your library. Seems pretty good. So that's scry 1 in a way, but it's draw 1 if it's a creature or planeswalker card. It's limited if it's a creature card. Yeah. I mean, we have to see how fast the format is. You have to be able to take, some amount of a turn off to play this and do nothing in order to maybe only scry away a land, which is okay. Perhaps to draw another card. But if you do survive that turn, and you get to do this every turn after that, well, then it's a lot better. But we have to see how fast this format is. If this is a fast format, I don't want to take my turn off to do this. We've had so many different red enchantments and green enchantments that do some variation of maybe draw a card every turn. And there's been formats where they've been great, and there's been formats where they've been literally stone unplayable. So we'll see how fast the format is. Let's hope it's a slowish or slower-ish format. Very few sets are these days. But assuming this is playable, it'll be very good and you'll pick it pretty highly. I'm not quite going to give this the first pick. I think the previous Ascendancy is much higher, but let's go second, third pick on Cabaret Ascendancy with the knowledge that if this is a hyper aggro format, which a couple of players at the pre-release showed us, yeah, it can go real fast, then maybe this isn't actually as playable. Up next is Cabaret Charm. Cabaret Charm is red, green, white for an instant at uncommon. Choose one. Cabaret Charm deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control to target creature or planeswalker. Okay, we've seen that effect before, and it's been okay. I do believe red, green, white wants to make a bunch of tokens, so hopefully this deals damage, but you want this to be at least... You want this to be at least a lightning bolt, right? You want at least 3 damage here, which shouldn't be horrendous to get. And then anything over 5 is probably just overkill. Or creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain trample until end of turn. That seems pretty big if you're going wide. Or create 2 1/1 green and white citizen creature tokens. That feels pretty bad. That feels like the desperation play, but the option is there should you need it. This seems pretty good. I think I, again, like it less than the broker one, but not by much. Again, third pick. I don't think I'd jump down to fourth, fifth here, but I do like this one a lot less. I think this one's less flexible because 2 modes of this require you having a bunch of creatures down. But I mean, we're talking about, do I really want to keep this at third, or do I want to go all the way down to fourth? So it doesn't really matter. And this is why I like my grade scale, because it doesn't matter. We don't have to fight if this is actually an A- or a B+. We're going to go third pick for Cabaret Charm. Up next is Celestial Regulator. Celestial Regulator is 1 white-blue for a creature angel advisor at common. It's a 2/3 flyer. When Celestial Regulator enters the battlefield, choose target creature you don't control and tap it. If you control the creature with a counter on it, the chosen creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. So 2/3 flyer for 3 that taps something down is not super exciting. It's not horrendous either. But at that point, we are really talking about 6th through 8th pick. These days, honestly, maybe even a little bit more on the wheel. Like Windrakes just aren't that good anymore. Assuming you've got some counter stuff going, whether it be +1s or shields or whatever, and this does freeze it for a turn, it's a little bit better. It's like that flying Frostlinks that we had. Can't remember what it was. So this is probably fine-ish, but I think we're still in like the 5th, 6th pick here. You know, vanilla 2/3 flyers just have kind of gone down a bit. I remember when Windrake was a very solid pick, and it just isn't anymore. So yeah, let's go 5th, 6th pick here for Celestial Regulator. Again, you'll vary later in packs based on whether or not you are going to get those counters going or not. Up next is Ceremonial Groundbreaker. Ceremonial Groundbreaker is 1 green white for an artifact equipment at uncommon. Equipped creature gets +2/+1 and has trample. Equip citizen 1. Equip 3. Trample's nice. I'm never wanting to pay 3 for this to equip it. I am wanting to pay 1. There's a whole lot of citizens in green and white. I believe, is it the Naya deck that wants to be citizens? Or maybe it's just green-white wants to be citizens, and then whichever family pairs with that. Yeah, I think you take this quite lowly in pack 1. We're talking like 6th through 8th, maybe even wheel it. And then pack 2, pack 3, once you are kind of on the citizen train, then you can probably justify playing this. But I need to make sure this is definitely going on a citizen. I don't want to pay 3 mana to equip this. Trample's cute, but you could also just play a good card. Up next is Civil Servant. Civil Servant is green-white for a creature cat citizen at common. It's a 2/3. Whenever Civil Servant attacks, you may tap another untapped citizen you control. If you do, Civil Servant gets +1/+0 and gains lifelink until end of turn. So you need to have another citizen. You need to be willing to attack with a 3/3 and have another citizen that you don't want to attack with and don't want to block with. And if you have all of that, you get a 3/3 lifelinker, which is good. If you don't, you have a 2/3 for 2, which is not amazing. No, this feels like super filler to me. It's a citizen, so, you know, it'll go up if you're requiring citizens, but I don't think you pick this to get into the citizen deck. This is a 2/3 for 2 with an upside. Sidian, you haven't played much Magic. A 2/3 for 2 with a slight upside is pretty bad these days. Welcome to modern Magic. Yeah, this is pretty medium. Like, I'm talking 6th through 8th pick here, maybe even wheel it. You'll want it if you want citizens, but this isn't the payoff. Certainly not at common. Up next is Carmella, Glamour Thief. Carmella Glamour Thief is 1 blue, black, red for legendary creature Vampire Rogue at uncommon. It's a 2/4 with haste. Pay 1 tap to add blue, black, red, but spend it only to cast instant and/or sorcery spells. When Carmella Glamour Thief dies, return up to 1 target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. So I don't think there's an instant or sorcery deck, right? In this format, that's not a mechanic. So realistically, you're playing, you know, a small handful of instant and sorceries, and you can get perhaps upwards of a 2-mana discount on one of them, and then when she dies, she returns it. This doesn't seem amazing. Yeah, this feels out of place to me. It's a 2/4 for 4, which is semi-standard. Hopefully draws a card on death. You know, you're not playing this if you're blue, black, red. But I don't think I'm over the moon on this card. I think I'm on like 6th through 8th pick. I don't think I can go that much higher. Yargo, thanks for the 30 months. Up next is Corpse Appraiser. Corpse Appraiser is blue, black, red for a creature Vampire Rogue at uncommon. It's a 3/3. When Corpse Appraiser enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target creature card from a graveyard. If a card is put into exile this way, look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put one of those cards into your hand and the rest in your graveyard. So 3/3 for 3, and probably gonna draw me a card. I get any of those 3. Look at the top 3, put 1 in. Cool. Sure. This seems good. Fourth, 5th pick. Obviously, I want bombs. I want removal. But this follows right after that, I would say. 4th, 5th pick. This seems good. Obviously, you need to be getting that card off of it. I would probably hold this back on turn 3 if you're not actually able to get a card out of it, but it's going to make a pretty decent top deck, because a 3/3 is a body that exists and will interact with the game in the late game state, and getting to draw an extra card would be pretty nice too, especially with a bit of selection. So let's go 4th, 5th pick for Corpse Appraiser. Up next is Corpse Explosion. Corpse Explosion is 1 black, red for a sorcery at rare. As an additional cost to cast this spell, exile a card from your graveyard. Corpse Explosion deals damage equal to the exiled card's power to each creature and each planeswalker. Okay. 3 mana for possibly a board wipe. You can potentially finagle it into not asynchronous, asymmetrical board wipe. This should have some play in it. This should definitely have some play in it. Kind of sucks that it's dead if you don't have a super decent one, a super decent creature in your graveyard, but I think this should do some work. I'm not going to pick it where I would pick a Wrath. I'm going to pick this probably just a slight bit lower, maybe a little bit more like 3rd-ish pick, we'll say. Yeah, let's go 3rd-ish pick for Corpse Explosion. But yeah, that seems decent. Up next is Crew Captain. Crew Captain, yeah, each creature. Crew Captain is black, red, green for a creature human warrior at uncommon. It's a 4/2 with haste. Crew Captain has indestructible as long as it entered the battlefield this turn. Okay. I see why this is uncommon. It would suck if it was common. It's not amazing, but a 4/2 haste that has like unblockable / kill a dumb little chump blocker on ETB kind of seems fine. I don't want to spend a second, third pick on this. I don't think I want to go fourth-ish, but maybe like fifth-ish, sixth-ish. You know, I'm not getting into black, red, green for this, but I'll play it in every black, green deck. Black, red, green deck. Yeah, let's go like fifth, sixth pick for crew captain. Up next is Darling of the Masses. Darling of the Masses is 2 green, white for a creature elf citizen at uncommon. Other citizens you control get +1/+0. It's a 2/4. Whenever Darling of the Masses attacks, create a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token. So, as I talked about with the green-white common, you don't pick that to be like, haha, I'm going to get into citizens. You pick this to get into citizens. Citizen Attack Lord attacks makes a citizen, which of course is not a 1/1. It would be a 2/1 temporarily at least. This is a card you'll pick relatively highly to get into the citizen deck. We're talking in the second, third pick range. Real good. Defines a deck. Pick it pretty highly. Up next is Disciplined Duelist. Disciplined Duelist is green, white, blue for a creature human citizen at uncommon. It's a 2/1 with double strike. Disciplined Duelist enters the battlefield with a shield counter on it. Our first new mechanic. Basically, if this permanent would be dealt damage or destroyed, you remove a shield counter from it instead. It is yet another in the long line of ways to make removal look stupid. I don't like it. I think it's bad design. I think it panders to the people who get really sad when their creature dies, which, tough. It's how the game works. The upside of the shield counters is that any amount of damage will remove that counter. So if you put a 1/1 in front of this, the counter will go away. If you hit every creature on the board for 1 damage, the shield counters will go away. That is a decent upside. But if you cast a murder on this to get rid of the shield counter, boy howdy, are you absolutely behind the 8 ball. I don't like cards that make removal look stupid. I think it's bad design. So it's a 2/1 double strike that's hard to kill at least the first time around. It's going to be a pretty playable card. We're talking like third-ish, fourth-ish range. I probably want to get something added to this. I want to get a +1/+1 counter, maybe 2. I want to get an aura on this, maybe. I want to do a slight something to this, but I think the brokers are able to do that. We already saw their Ascendancy is friggin' half a Citadel Siege. So there's ways to do this. I think you'll pick this pretty highly. Let's go in the third, fourth pick range. I don't think I can go second pick because I do need to do something to this. Just a 2/1 double strike with shield. I don't think I can go second pick, but let's go third. Up next is Endless Detour. Endless Detour is green, white, blue for an instant at rare. The owner of target spell, non-land permanent, or card in a graveyard puts it on the top or bottom of their library. Is that everything? Target spell, so we're talking about something on the stack. Non-land permanent. Okay, so this is every single thing that exists on the battlefield, the graveyard, and the stack. So that is not a lands on the battlefield. So you can't hit a land and you can't hit exiled stuff. And who chooses top or bottom on this? This is like Aether Gust, right? The owner chooses top or bottom. Or is this not like Aether Gust? What does Aether Gust say? The owner chooses. So this is not in any way, shape, or form removal. It's a terrible remand. This is for you. This is a regrowth for you, right? This is it. This is a regrowth for you. This is not a rare that I want to open either. Am I missing any like amazing other use case? Like it's a real bad snakeskin veil. It's not, you didn't counter my spell. I temporarily countered my own spell. It's a Griptide. Yeah, this is just not a rare that I want to open myself. You'll play this in Bant, I think, because it's a Griptide or a regrowth, just like you would play a Griptide or a regrowth. Griptide and bounce and whatnot is not quite as good as it once was due to every card doing something. But I can see this around like the 6th through 8th pick. Maybe even the wheel. But boy, once again, a rare I don't want to open. I've seen a lot of those so far. Up next is Evelyn the Covetous. Evelyn is 2 blue or black, black or red. For a legendary creature vampire rogue at rare, it's a 2/5 with flash. When Evelyn the Covetous or another vampire enters the battlefield under your control, exile the top card of each player's library with a collection counter on it. Once each turn, you can play a card from exile with a collection counter on it if it was exiled by an ability you controlled. And you may spend mana as though it were any color to cast it. Okay. Let's go query Scryfall here. Set SNC type vampire. Rarity less than rare. Not many. I see 3 commons and 4 uncommons. It's not a ton. So unfortunately, the card is only very good. It's only very, 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 very good. Yeah, 2/5 flash for 5 is one hell of a blocker. Plus, it's going to draw you a card. You get to play that card from exile. And then should you happen to have any other vampires, which happen to all be in black, or blue-black or blue-black-red, then you might be able to draw some more cards. Seems good. Well, it doesn't draw 2, right? Oh, each player's. Yeah, it does draw 2. Cool. Yeah, the card is only extraordinarily good in a first pick. So, first pick for Evelyn the Covetous. Up next is Exotic Pets. Exotic Pets is 1 white blue for an instant at uncommon. Create 2 1/1 blue fish creature tokens with this creature can't be blocked. Then for each kind of counter among creatures you control, put a counter of that kind on either of those tokens. So 3 mana for an instant speed, 2 1/1s. Okay. Slightly more expensive, raise the alarm, but those 1/1s happen to be real good attackers because they can't be blocked, and perhaps one of them has a +1/+1 counter, or perhaps one has a shield counter, or whatever other kind of counters are kicking around. This seems like it'll have some use. I have seen that blue-white is really caring about counters quite a bit, so hopefully you can get... I think even 1 counter on one of these is probably making this card pretty okay, pretty decent. And if you do get a second counter of any kind or more, I think this card's pretty good for what the blue-white deck wants to do. I don't 100% know where I'm picking it. It is just 2 1/1s, and while they are unblockable, you know, that doesn't matter if you're behind in a race or if you don't have a good board like to block while attacking with them. So I'm in like the 4th-ish pick, 5th-ish pick range here, 4th, 5th maybe. But we'll see how it goes. Let's go 4th, 5th pick for Exotic Pets. Up next is Falco Sparra, Pact Weaver. Falco Sparra is 1 green, white, blue for a legendary creature bird demon at Mythic. It's a 3/3, flying, trample. When it ETBs with a shield counter on it, of course. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may cast spells from the top of your library by removing a counter from a creature you control in addition to paying their other costs. Yup. Real good. Real good. First pick. It's first pick, even if the second 2 sentences aren't there, I think. And with the second 2 sentences, yeah, absolutely. Easy first pick for Falco here. This is kind of a definition of a bomb. Up next is Fatal Grudge. Fatal Grudge is black and a red for a sorcery and uncommon. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a non-land permanent. Each opponent chooses a permanent they control that shares a type with the sacrificed permanent and sacrifices it. Draw a card. So they turned Bone Splinters into an edict? And you draw a card? I don't care for this card. Edicts are bad. Edicts are real bad. Sorcery speed edicts? Even worse. Drawing a card is cute, but you could also play better cards. You could also play better cards. Edicts are not good. Edicts are not good. I think I would wheel it, and I think I'd be hard-pressed to play it unless I had a reason to sack creatures. I know the sack deck's supposed to exist. We'll have to see when we actually find a payoff, but I don't care for this card. Edicts are not good. Edicts are much worse when you have to pay a creature for them. I'm going to wheel this card and see where we go. Up next is Fleetfoot Dancer. Fleetfoot Dancer is 1 green, red, white for a creature, elf, druid at rare. It's a 4/4 trample lifelink haste. Yep. Gonna pick that up. Notably, this deals with shield counter permanents. How do edicts work? Do you choose what they sacrifice? No. No, you do not. They choose what they sacrifice. Yeah, this card's great. First pick. Easy first pick. It's your standard keyword soup, rare, real good. Pick it. Pick it highly. Up next is Forge Boss. Forge Boss is 2 black red for a creature human warrior at uncommon. It's a 3/4. Whenever you sacrifice one or more other creatures, Forge Boss deals 2 damage to each opponent. The ability triggers only once each turn. Of course it does. Well, here's the payoff. It's not great because it's got that fun little triggers only once, but it is each turn. So if you can sack stuff on your turn and sack stuff on their turn, that's 4 damage. That's going to add up real quick. This is obviously what you need if you're going to make the black-red sack deck works. I still probably want to see a better payoff than this, especially since it's uncommon, which means you're not really, piling up on these. Remember, on average, you're getting less than 0.9 of a copy per draft. Yeah, I mean, this is what the sack decks want. I don't think I'm doing this to get into the sack deck. I don't know. It feels like 5th, 6th pick for me, 7th pick for me. I want to have a better reason than this already to get into black-red. But we'll see what the black-red sack deck looks like a little bit more. It is fine stats, so, it's not unplayable. You're not playing this in your black-red deck. And it could be the thing that makes the black-red deck tick. So let's go 6th, 7th pick. I'm not quite into the black-red deck just from reading this just yet. Up next is Glamorous Outlaw. Glamorous Outlaw is 3 blue, black, red for a creature vampire rogue at common. It's a 4/5. When Glamorous Outlaw enters the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to each opponent, and you scry 2. Pay 2, exile Glamorous Outlaw from your hand. Target land gains tap, add blue, black, and red until Glamorous Outlaw is cast from exile. You may cast Glamorous Outlaw for as long as it remains exiled. I'm deeply curious to see how this looks in Arena, because if this goes off to exile, and I just have to know that the land happens to produce blue, black, red, it's going to be very annoying. But there's a cycle of these. These are how you're going to sort of fix your mana. You pick these a little bit highly as soon as you think you're getting into one of these 3 or perhaps 4 color decks. And your plan is that you are absolutely paying 2 for this to get your fixing going. And then later in the game, you get yourself a 4/5 that deals 2 to your opponent and scries 2. Card seems pretty decent. I'm assuming the entire cycle looks pretty decent. I think you'll pick these fairly highly. I think you're up in like the 6th-ish pick range. As like the only way I would not pick this 6th-ish pick out of most packs, maybe even 5th-ish, would be if I was in green, white strongly already. You should pick these probably pretty highly, I think. Let's go 5th, 6th pick range for this, basically this entire cycle. And this one looks pretty good to me. Up next is Hostile Takeover. Hostile Takeover is 2 blue, black, red for a sorcery at rare. Up to 1 target creature has base power and toughness 1/1 until end of turn. Up to 1 other target creature has base power and toughness 4/4 until end of turn. Then Hostile Takeover deals 3 damage to each creature. Three damage. Time to do a Scryfall query. Set SNC toughness greater than 3. Rarity less than rare. 23 cards have a toughness of 4 or greater. You do get to guarantee that one of your creatures lives. This is probably, again, in the realm of like Wrath where I hope it works. I hope it works, as opposed to just Wrath. Which to me puts this more in like the I think we have to see how this plays out, I think, but maybe in like the 3rd-ish pick range. Again, not necessarily the rare that I want to be opening. We'll have to see how many, in general, 4 power or creature play, 4 power or greater creatures get played. You can, of course, turn off one of their big things. I think this is decent. I'm in like the 3rd pick range here. I'm just always hesitant about the Wraths where you don't necessarily know what's going to happen. I want my Wrath to be a Wrath. I don't want my Wrath to be like, well, maybe 1 thing survives, or maybe 5 things survive, or maybe 7, or maybe all of your opponents and none of yours. I don't like inconsistency in my Wraths. So let's go 3rd-ish pick for Hostile Takeover. Up next is Incandescent Arya. Incandescent Arya is red, green, white for a rare at sorcery. Incandescent Arya deals 3 damage to each non-token creature. So, I mean, again, exact same thing. 3 damage to each non-token. So in red, green, white, you're probably hopefully making a bunch of citizen tokens or tokens like that, which means your stuff is not going to get nuked. So I think I like this one a little bit more than this one, because you don't get to control what your opponent's toughnesses are. You don't you sort of get to control what your toughnesses are, but it's not like you're going to stack up on 4 toughness, 5 toughness creatures. Whereas with this one, you do get to control that you're making a lot of token creatures. And in fact, your deck wants to, by design, make token creatures. So I do like this one a little bit more. So I guess if I said 3rd pick for Hostile Takeover, I'll say 2nd pick for Incandescent Arya. Just make sure that you don't somehow end up in a deck that doesn't make tokens, I suppose. Yeah, let's go 2nd pick for Incandescent Arya. Up next is Jetmir, Nexus of Revels. Jetmir is 1 red, green, white for a legendary creature, cat, demon, at mythic. It's a 5/4 for 4. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and have vigilance as long as you control 3 or more creatures. Doesn't sound too hard. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and have trample as long as you control 6 or more creatures. Well, that's starting to get a little bit harder. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and have double strike as long as you control 9 or more creatures. How have you not won the game already? First pick. Great card. Great card. If you weren't already thinking about playing a lot of creatures, perhaps you should think about playing a lot of creatures, maybe making a bunch of tokens. This card is exceptionally, exceptionally good. It doesn't even need the first line. It's a 5/4 for 4. The first line you should be able to have on, because you only need 2 more creatures, right? This one plus 2 others. Yeah, card's great. Easy first pick. Up next is Jetmir's Fixer. Jetmir's Fixer is red-green for a creature, cat, warrior at comm, and it's a 2/2 that I assume taps for mana of any color. Red-green, Jetmir's Fixer gets +1/+1 until end of turn. If mana from a treasure was spent to activate this ability, put a +1/+1 counter on Jetmir's Fixer instead. Yeah, you want to be making treasures. You don't want to be playing a 2/2 for 2 with an expensive shade ability. But if you're playing treasures, especially like repeating treasures, like that weird rare that we saw that could make a treasure every turn, then cool. Getting one counter on this turns this card into something pretty dang good. And then if you do get a second counter, a third counter, a fourth counter, even better. It doesn't say you can only do this once per turn. That's true. I don't know if you're going to be having that many treasures kicking around. Upside as well, you only have to spend one treasure. You don't have to spend two. Yeah, I think this is still pretty filler. I think we're talking like 6th, 7th pick range. But if you're making treasures, you're gonna bump this up a little bit, because again, that first counter makes this significantly better. Significantly better. The pump is fine. I'm not super stoked. I don't remember the last time that pumping creatures was great. There's so much else you can do with your mana these days. Have you read most cards these days? But I still think you're playing this in probably every red-green deck, and even more so if you have treasures. Up next is Ginny Fade, Jetmir's second. Ginny Fade is red or green, green or white. For a legendary creature elf druid at rare, it's a 3/3. If you would create one or more tokens, you may instead create that many 2/2 green cat creature tokens with haste, or that many 3/1 green dog creature tokens with vigilance. Okay, so if you're making a crappy token, a 1/1, you could instead make them 2/2s or 3/1s with vigilance. 2/2s with haste or 3/1s with vigilance. Sure, if you're in the token making deck, which Naya wants to be, then you'll probably be pretty happy with this. Obviously, you're not going to be like, I'm making 4/4 angels. I'll make them into 2/2s. I guess unless it wins you the game. Treasures could become those too. That is also very cute. Yeah, as long as you have token generators, this is pretty good. So you could pick this first and build around it, and it's going to be pretty payoffy second or third pack when you definitely are in this. It is kind of anti-synergy with citizens because it turns them off from being citizens, but it turns them into 2/2s or 3/1s with vigilance. So, and it's a May. It's a May. So it's never anti-synergy if you don't want it to be. So all around, I think this is probably a first pick in a lot of packs. Up next is Legrella the Magpie. Legrella the Magpie is green, white, blue for legendary creature human soldier at uncommon. It's a 2/3. When Legrella the Magpie enters the battlefield, exile any number of other target creatures controlled by different players until Legrella leaves the battlefield. When an exiled card enters the battlefield under your control, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. So it's a 2/3 for 3, and you can exile one of your creatures, and you can exile one of your opponent's creatures. Then, should Legrella die or otherwise leave the battlefield, your opponent will get their creature back, and you'll get your creature back with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. Cool. Cool. 2/3 for 3 for a Fiend Hunter is fine. Fiend Hunter was a 1/3 for 3 mana. Banisher Priest, whatever you want to happen to call it. And if you're okay taking something off your board, it coming back with 2 +1/+1 counters is kind of a nice like ransom deal. Like, yeah, you could get your creature back, but I'm going to get mine back with counters. I think this is a pretty good card. I think it's fairly high pick. We're talking 3rd-ish pick range. Good card is good. Good card is good. Up next is Lord Xander the Collector. Lord Xander the Collector is 4 blue, black, red for a legendary creature vampire demon noble at Mythic. It's a 6/6. When Lord Xander the Collector enters the battlefield, target opponent discards half the cards in their hand, rounded down. Okay. When Lord Xander attacks, defending player mills half their library, rounded down. When Lord Xander dies, target opponent sacrifices half the non-land permanents they control, rounded down. Seems real good. Seems real good. Slight difficulty in this being a 7-drop. Again, 7 is around where we're going to have to ask the question of how fast is the format. Have a plan. to get to 7. But if you get to 7 and have a 6/6 that demolishes your opponent's hand, that's pretty good. Milling half their library doesn't matter. That middle section is stupid and pointless and flavor text. Could even potentially help your opponent out. But it is a 6/6. And then if they do kill it, they also lose half their non-land permanents. So it's a first pick, assuming the format is not just so absolutely ludicrously fast that you simply cannot ever play a 7-drop. Which, you never know. Could be the case. But as long as that's not the case, first pick, real good card. Up next is Maestros Ascendancy. Maestros Ascendancy is blue, black, red for an enchantment at rare. Once during each of your turns, you may cast an instant or sorcery spell from your graveyard by sacrificing a creature in addition to paying its other costs. If a spell cast this way would be put into the graveyard, exile it instead. Don't like it. Don't like it. Feels commandery. Feels commandery. 3 mana. Do stone nothing. And then if you so desire, sacking part of your board state to recast an instant or sorcery, you could do that. But you spend a card and some percentage upwards to 100% of a turn casting this. The other 2 Ascendancies are way better. I don't know if I'd ever play this. Because again, it's limited. If there's no instants or sorceries deck, you don't tend to play a ton of instants and sorceries. You play like usually 5, 6, maybe. It does turn your removal into Bone Splinters, except at full cost, whereas Bone Splinters has a deep discount of being 1 mana. I don't think I'm playing this. I think I'm effing this. I don't think I'm playing this even if I'm playing a blue, black, red deck. I think I can find better cards. F for Maestros Ascendancy. Up next is Maestros Charm. Maestros Charm is blue, black, red for an instant at uncommon. Choose one. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. Put one of those cards into your hand, the rest into your graveyard. Each opponent loses 3 life and you gain 3 life. Maestros Charm deals 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker. Cool. 3 mana instant speed, kill most things. Sold. If I want to dig and or potentially fill my graveyard, I've got that option. And if my opponent is at 3 life or less, I've got that option. This charm's good, like the other charms. Luckily, better than the Ascendancy. So again, we're looking at like 2nd, 3rd pick for the Maestros Charm. Real good. Flexibility is huge, and all 3 modes have use. Each opponent loses 3 life and you gain 3 life is probably the least use case. Up next is Maestros Diabolist. Maestros Diabolist is blue, red, black for a rare creature vampire warrior. It's a 1/4 with death touch and haste. Whenever Maestros... Why is there no apostrophe? Because they're called the Maestros. Maestros Diabolist attacks. If you don't control a devil token, create a tapped and attacking 1/1 red devil creature token with, when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. I love how devils have been like absolutely codified into what they are. Whereas cats can be 2/2 green creatures. So 1 for death touch for 3. So they're not going to want to block it outside of chumping because of death touch. And you get a 1/1 devil that's sort of unblockable, because if they block it and kill it, then they still take 1 anyways. Again, not really the rare that I want to open, but a fine card. I feel like if there were just... I will bet you that if they ever codify create a devil as rules text, and this said 1/4 death touch haste, whenever it attacks, if you don't control a devil, create a devil, this would probably be an uncommon. I think there's just a slight too many words on this for it to be allowed to be an uncommon. Yeah, I think this is fine. You'll play it in every single blue, black, red deck. I'm just not going massively out of my way to pick it. I don't want this to be the rare in my pack, but we're still talking like 4th, 5th pick, never not playing. Solid uncommon here, we'll say. Up next is Masked Bandits. Masked Bandits is 3 black, red, green for a creature Raccoon Rogue at common. It's a 5/5 Vigilance Menace with the pay to exile it to make a land, tap for black, red, green, and you can cast it from exile. Again, you should be picking these pretty highly. Odds are higher than you think. 5th, 6th pick, these are great. These are how your 3-color decks are going to work. This is one of the ways that your 3-color decks are going to work. They honestly remind me of the Morph commons from Khans of Tarkir. Obviously work in an entirely different way, but they definitely remind me of the common 3-color morphs. 5th, 6th pick for Masked Bandits, just like the rest of the cycle. Up next is Meeting of the Five. Meeting of the Five is 3 white, blue, black, red, green for a sorcery at Mythic. Exile the top 10 cards of your library. You may cast spells with exactly 3 colors from among them this turn. Add white, white, blue, blue, black, black, red, red, green, green. Spend this mana only to cast spells with exactly 3 colors. You're never casting this. Never cast this card. By the time you can cast it, you're emptying your library, probably, which means those 3 cards need to win you the game that turn. Hope they have haste. Also, hope they don't cost any more than 10 mana total. So, strong F. Never pick it. Up next is Metropolis Angel. Metropolis Angel is 2 white blue for a creature Angel Soldier at uncommon. It's a 3/1 flyer. Whenever you attack with 1 or more creatures with counters on them, draw a card. 3/1 flyer for 4 is pretty standard from older days. Probably still okay now. And whenever you attack with 1 or more creatures with counters on them. So this does not have the counter, and this does not have to attack. Just flat out draw a card. Seems good. Seems good. I will pick this pretty highly. Only in 2 colors, too. What's the other blue? Is there another blue-white option? Because there's blue-white, black, and blue-white, green. Yeah, 2 options. Cool. Let's 3rd, 4th pick this. I think this is pretty good. It is only 1 toughness, but they're going to have something in the air. Opponents don't just snap their fingers and have a flying blocker. Yeah, I'm going to go 3rd, 4th pick for Metropolis Angel. And obviously try to draft counters with it. If it's just a 3/1 flyer, because you have like 1 thing that puts a counter on something, still probably playable, but significantly less so. My buttons to move the cards are no longer working. All right. What card are we on? We're on 203. Let's go to 204. Up next is Mr. Orpheo the Boulder. Mr. Orpheo is 1 black, red, green for a legendary creature Rhino Warrior at uncommon. It's a 2/4. Whenever you attack, double target creature's power until end of turn. You could double your opponent's creature's power. Don't, but you could. 2/4 for 4. That it could be a 4/4 for 4, or something else could be bigger. This does not have to attack. Cool. Cool. You'll play it in every single red, green, black deck. I don't know that it's drawing me into the red, green, black deck. You'll play it in every single one. I'm on like 5th, 6th pick here. I think you're still picking it mildly highly, but I think you kind of need to think that you're already heading down this 3-color path. And if you are, there you go, 5th, 6th pick, and feel rewarded if it does happen to come a little bit later. Again, always play it, but there's probably better cards to spend 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th pick on. Up next is Nimble Larsonist. Nimble Larsonist is white, blue, black for a creature bird rogue at uncommon. It's a 2/1 flyer. When Nimble Larsonist enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals their hand. You choose an artifact, instant, or sorcery card from it, and exile that card. If I don't get something with this, I feel like I overpaid. If I do get something with this, I feel pretty good because they just discard it. Yeah, this isn't like freebooter. They exile it. Probably not hitting an artifact. I've taken a peek at the artifacts. Spoiler, they're almost all bad. Instants and sorceries, though, those will exist. So, I mean, you're never not playing this. I think I'm probably in like the... probably in the 5th-ish range for this. You can't snap your finger. You can't know that you're going to get an instant or sorcery with this, although I think it'll be regular enough that it'll be playable. And you end up with a 2/1 flyer for 3. You didn't overpay that much. So yeah, let's go 5th pick for Nimble Larsonist, and you'll certainly always play it. Again, just a reminder, these grades are talking about where to pick them, but the grades are really just a way to finish off the discussion. The discussion's the more important part, and the discussion of this card, for example, is you're always playing it. You're always playing it. Up next is Ob Nixilis the Adversary. Ob Nixilis the Adversary is 1 black-red for a legendary Planeswalker Nixilis. Was it always Nixilis? Yes, it was on my card sheet over there. At Mythic, it starts with 3 loyalty. It has Casualty X. Casualty is another new mechanic. Casualty is as you cast the spell, you can sacrifice a creature with power X or greater. Normally it's a number. When you do, you copy the spell, and the copy becomes a token. So when you cast Ob Nixilis, if you sacrifice a 4/4, you get a second Ob Nixilis that is a token, non-legendary, with 4 loyalty. So if you want 2 planeswalkers, you just have to draft this one. This one starts with 3 loyalty, +1. Each opponent loses 2 life unless they discard a card. If you control a demon or devil, you gain 2 life. Cool. -2, create a 1/1 red devil creature token with when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. -7, target player draws 7 cards and loses 7 life. Now imagine if you have 2 of these and you're doing 2 +1s a turn, or 2 -2s a turn, or plussing one and minusing the other. It's a first pick. It's a pretty dang good planeswalker. It defends itself a little bit. Real good card. First pick. Up next is Obscura Ascendancy. Is this our last one? I think this is our 4th one. Obscura Ascendancy is white, blue, black for an enchantment at rare. Whenever you cast a spell, if its mana value is equal to 1 plus the number of soul counters on it, put a soul counter on Obscura Ascendancy, then create a 2/2 white spirit creature token with flying. Whenever you cast a spell, if its mana value is equal to 1 plus the number, put a soul counter on it, and then make a 2/2. So to get your first 2/2, you have to play a 1-drop. Then you have to play a 2-drop, and then a 3-drop, and then a 4-drop. Okay. As long as there are 5 or more soul counters on Obscura Ascendancy, spirits you control get +3/+3. No. No. This feels like an F to me. So you need to have 1-drops in your deck, preferably a pretty decent number. You need to not play your 1-drops until you play this. And then finally on turn 4, 5, 12, you play that 1-drop and you get a 2/2 flyer. It's cute. It seems bad. So I am going to put an F on Obscura Ascendancy. It's cute. It's ludicrously high variance. I'm not in for that. I don't do this. F on Obscura Ascendancy. I ain't playing it. Up next is Obscura Charm. Obscura Charm is white, blue, black for an instant at uncommon. Choose one. Return target multicolored permanent with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Counter target instant or sorcery spell. Destroy target creature or planeswalker with mana value 3 or less. This is the least good charm we've seen. It's still fine. It's still got the versatility. But like, the Maestros one kills most things in the format. This does not. The fight one will kill a lot of things in the format, assuming you have a creature. This will not. I don't remember what the other one does. This is still fine, but I think it's a solid step below the other ones. I think we're in 4th, 5th pick range here. There's restrictions on every single step of this. You have to have a cheap permanent in your graveyard. They have to cast an instant or sorcery. They have to have a target mana value 3 or less that you care about. There's restrictions on every step. So let's go 4th, 5th. You'll always play it, but I think it's the worst one we've seen so far. Up next is Obscura Interceptor. Obscura Interceptor is 1 white, blue, black for a creature Cephalid Wizard at rare. It's a 3/1 flash lifelink. When Obscura Interceptor enters the battlefield, it connives. When it connives this way, return up to 1 target spell to its owner's hand. So connive is another new mechanic. Connive is draw a card, discard a card. So it's a loot. Note, it is a mandatory loot. You cannot not connive. If you discard a non-land card, however, you put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. So it kind of plays against how normally you would want to loot away a land. This encourages you to loot away a non-land. So 3/1 flash lifelink for 4 that loots is all pretty good. I'm probably not super wanting to do this as like, haha, block, because I probably lose my creature. But end of your turn, haha, 3/1, maybe 4/2 lifelink. That's pretty good. And then if we do connive, we potentially get to return a spell, possibly the card that we discarded. Yeah, this card's good. I think it slightly falls into that category of like, I think it's a really, 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 really good uncommon. I don't know that I want this to be the rare in my pack, but I'm still going to pick it relatively highly. We're talking like 3rd-ish pick. 3rd-ish, 4th-ish pick, I would say. Just doesn't do enough to be a rare. Can't target cards engraved. Return up to 1 spell. Spell, not card. Good catch. Spell. You are using this as a counter spell. This is the problem when like some games call things spells and other things call them cards. This is a remand basically. Okay, got it. Cool. It's still a good card. So my giant mistake has changed this from being a 2nd, 3rd pick to being a 2nd, 3rd pick. I'm picking like a murder over this, but you know, outside of low color cost removal, you're still picking this quite highly. Yeah, it's remand on a stick. Yeah. Got it. Good catch. Up next is Ognis the Dragon's Lash. Ognis the Dragon's Lash is 1 red or black, red or green, for a legendary creature via Shino Warrior at rare. It's a 3/3 haste. Whenever a creature you control with haste attacks, create a tapped treasure token. 3/3 haste for 4 that makes a token if I attack. Sure. Any creature with haste, as long as this is down, makes a tapped treasure token. Sure. Slightly slow ramp. Okay. Cool. Seems good. Just outside of, I think, the bomb range. I think I'm on like 2nd, 3rd pick here. The hybrid mana makes this really easy to cast, which is nice. But I'm going to go like, because remember, this could be like 1 red, green, or 1 black, red. So you can even play this if you're in a 2-color deck, perhaps. Yeah, I think this is a fine card, but I am in like the 2nd, 3rd pick here. I don't think it's quite bomby. Up next is Park Heights Pegasus. Park Heights Pegasus is green-white for a creature Pegasus at rare. It's a 2/1 flying trample. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, draw a card if you had 2 or more creatures enter the battlefield under your control this turn. I mean, it's a 2/1 flample for 2. I don't know in what world you're regularly having 2 or more creatures enter the battlefield and not just like already just winning the hell out of that game. It's obviously a nice upside. This is obviously for making tokens and stuff, making citizen tokens and such. Again, I think it's one of these rares where I'm like, I don't really want to open this one, but you'll never, ever, 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 ever not play it, and you'll still pick it relatively highly. I'm in like the 4th, 5th pick range, I think. It's real easy to kill as long as they have any sort of removal or ping damage or literally any flying blocker or reach blocker that is not 0 power. And again, I don't know how often you're triggering that clause, but you only really need to trigger it once, maybe twice, and you're laughing. So let's go 4th, 5th pick for Park Heights Pegasus. Not quite the rare I want to see, but totally playable. Up next is Quasar, Augur of Agonies. This person is 1 white, blue, black for a legendary creature Cephalid Advisor at uncommon. It's a 3/4. Whenever you draw a card, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So 4 mana, 3/4 that at a bare minimum is doing 1 a turn. Perhaps more. Seems good. Seems good. I don't know why this isn't a rare. I guess it's an uncommon because it's legendary. You're never going to stack up on them, but seems good. Seems good. It seems what blue, black, white wants to do. I could see first picking this. I think realistically I would go 2nd, 3rd pick, but yeah, seems real good. Real good. Yeah, you want to make me like ill-gotten inheritance style effects? Staple them onto a 3/4. Let me attack with them. Real good card. Up next is Raffine Scheming Seer. Raffine is white, blue, black for a legendary creature Sphinx Demon at Mythic. It's a 1/4 with flying and ward 1. Whenever you attack, target attacking creature connives X. Connive can have a number where X is the number of attacking creatures. Connive can have a number. Draw X cards, then discard X cards. Put a counter for each non-land that way. So it's a 1/4 flyer ward 1 for 3. And whenever you attack with anybody, the 1 target attacking creature connives X. These are all good words. I think this is just a first pick. It feels slightly weak for this demon to be a piddly little 1/4 flyer. But it's pretty cheap. And I guess the trick is you attack with this creature. And it connives 1. Oops, now it's a 2/5. Yeah, cool. Card's great. First pick. Good card is good. Probably the weak. Obscura seems the weakest. They've got the weakest charm. They've got like the weakest ascendancy. I think they've got the weakest creature type demon mythic. Still good though. Still good. First pick. Up next is Rakish Revelers. Rakish Revelers is 2 red, green, white for a creature elf druid rogue at common. It's a 5/3. When Rakish Revelers enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 green and white creature citizen creature token. Pay 2, exile it. Target land gets red, green, white until you cast this, and you can cast it from exile. This looks like the worst of these, but again, you're still just 5th, 6th picking these because they are going to make your red, green, white deck tick. They are going to make your uh, green, white, blue, splash red deck tick. Again, this is the worst one we've seen. A 5/3 on turn 5 or later isn't the best. It dies to just a heck of a lot of like 2-drops. But again, this just makes your decks work. You need to pick them way higher than whatever you think you should pick them right now. 5th, 6th pick. And I can see packs where you might even pick them higher. And that goes for every single one of these 5 cards. Up next is Rigo Streetwise Mentor. Rigo is green or white, white or blue. For a legendary creature cat citizen at rare, it's a 2/2. It ETBs with a shield counter on it. Whenever you attack a player or planeswalker with one or more creatures with power 1 or less, draw a card. There's a lot of creatures that care about you attacking in general and not attacking with them. I think that's probably going to get me a lot, both on my side and on my opponent's side. There's a lot of them. But yeah, this card seems pretty good. 2/2 that's hard to kill thanks to that shield counter. To hell with shield counters. And then you just have to attack with whatever you want to draw a card. The fish tokens would be nuts. 1/1 unblockable draw a card would be nuts. And then there's citizen tokens and other options as well. And they don't even have to be tokens. You could have just an actual card that's an X, a 1X. Yeah, this seems pretty dang good. I think it's up in the first pick range. It's probably slightly shy of like True Bomb, because it's not busting the game wide open. It's just ludicrously good value. So realistically, I think I'm second pick, but there's a ton of packs where you're just first picking this. Up next is Riveteer's Ascendancy. Here's the last one. Riveteer's Ascendancy is black, red, green for an enchantment at rare. Whenever you sacrifice a creature, you may return target creature card with lesser mana value from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Do this only once each turn. So this has diminishing returns. Like in your wildest dreams, you're still running out of stuff to do with this. So I think we can pretty resoundingly say that the Broker's Ascendancy is the best, because it just does the thing, and it does the thing every turn. So let me think this through. You sack a 4. What is it? It's CMC. You sack a 4-drop, you get a 3-drop back. This just feels like another one of those not consistent things. You have to have exactly the right thing on the board and exactly the right thing in your graveyard. Otherwise, you're playing a card, paying 3 mana to potentially do nothing. And I don't like that. That's why I like the Broker's Ascendancy and the Cabaret Ascendancy way more than the other 3. I'll have to see what this deck looks like. I still think this is probably better than the Spirits one and better than the whatever the other one was that I really didn't like. I don't even remember it. It must have been so bad. It does work with Blitz. It works with a few things, but the thing is like Blitz works with Blitz, right? The Blitz card itself is good and does all the thing basically that you need to do. Yeah. I'm going to start on I'm never playing this because I'm never picking it higher than like 12th pick. If it's crazy, cool, but I don't see it. Not being able to sack tokens is huge. Like, that's huge. Huge knock against it. Up next is Riveteer's Charm. Riveteer's Charm is black, red, green for an instant at uncommon. Choose one. Target opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker they control with the highest mana value among creatures and planeswalkers they control. That's a good edict. We've seen that before. Because typically the thing you want to die is almost invariably the highest mana value. And this kills it. Unless they have 2. In which case, at least you got rid of one. Exile the top 3 cards of your library. Until your next end step, you may play those cards, all 3 of them. Next end step. Wait, no, next end step. Next. Well, you play this on your opponent's turn, and then you have their whole turn. Or exile target player's graveyard. That's obviously the super narrow womp womp mode. But yeah, this one's good. This one's good. I like this much more than the Obscura one, because the Obscura one has so many restrictions on it. This doesn't really have restrictions on it. You're using mode 1 the vast majority of the time. If you're ahead, you may as well get much further ahead and draw 3 cards for your next turn. Yeah, good card's good. I think we can second, third pick this one just as well. So it's just the Obscura Charm that sucks. And sucks in a not super strong use of that word, I suppose. Up next is Rocco, Cabaret Caterer. Rocco is X red, green, white for a legendary creature elf druid at uncommon. It's a 3/1. When Rocco enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you may search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less, put it onto the battlefield, and shuffle. So this sucks as a 3-mana 3/1. Don't do that. 4-mana 3/1, get a 1-drop. Whatever 1-drop I want. 5-mana 3/1, get whatever 2-drop I want. Okay. And then just late game. Like, if you ever cast this for X's 3 or 4, oof, I think you're doing real well. You'll pick this fairly highly, I think. Just, if you don't have to, make sure you're playing this late. You actually really desperately want this to not be in your opening hand. You want this to be like 6 cards down. But yeah, I can see third, fourth picking this, I think. I think this card's going to do some work. It's going to feel really good late game. I really like cards that are really good in the late game. I feel like a lot of people, maybe this is the best of one effect. I feel like a lot of people focus on cards that are really good at the start. Those 1/1s for 1 with haste. Whereas I want cards that are really good on like turn 7 or 8 or 9. Up next is Scheming Fence. Scheming Fence is white and blue for a creature human citizen at rare. It's a 2/3. As Scheming Fence enters the battlefield, you may choose a non-land permanent. Activated abilities of the chosen permanent can't be activated. Scheming Fence has all activated abilities of the chosen permanent except for loyalty abilities. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to activate those abilities. 2/3 for 2. Technically, you could copy the abilities of your permanent, but you would turn it off. But you turn off your opponent's card that specifically has activated abilities. So you need to just go, hope my opponent has activated abilities, otherwise I'm playing a vanilla 2/3. I don't like it. I don't like it. I would rather play this out of the sideboard. I wish there was an easy way to... I bet there's an easy way on Scryfall to search for activated abilities. Yeah, it's kind of like a Pithing Needle that's also a 2/3, which is not playable, except out of the sideboard. So I think I'm keeping this in the sideboard, and then when I see my opponent has like legitimate activated abilities, I'll side this in. These days, we just have way too many good cards to play something like this that might be a vanilla 2/3. Because the thing is like your opponent has to have that permanent out too. You can't play this on turn 2. Which means your 2/3 that you put in your deck, you're waiting for like turn 7, 8, 9 to actually cast it. Yeah, I'm pretty out on this. I would wheel this and I would probably keep it in my sideboard. So, womp womp. Up next is Security Rocks. Security Rocks is 2 red green for a creature Rhino Warrior at uncommon. It's a 5/4 for 4. You may pay red green rather than pay the spell's mana cost. Spend only mana produced by treasures to cast it this way. Cool. So my already undercosted 5/4 could be even more undercosted. Yeah. This seems fine. It's not first, it's not second, it's not third. I'm pretty happy in the 4th, 5th pick range here. 5/4 for 4 is already pretty dang okay. And if you do ever get this for 2 mana, seems really, really, really good. That's true. I guess you don't have to put the fence. You could name the card early with the fence, planning on them playing it, but you obviously can't do that in game 1, right? Yeah. So I'm on like 4th, 5th pick for security rocks here. Up next is Shattered Seraph. Shattered Seraph is 4 white, blue, black for a creature angel rogue at common. It's a 4/4 flyer for 7. A little expensive. When it ETBs, you gain 3 life. Cool. And it's the other of the cycle. So you pay 2, exile it, turn a land into a white, blue, black land for as long as it's exiled, play it. 5th, 6th pick these quite highly. Yes, they're a little bit expensive, but you are always paying 2 and getting your mana fixed. And then late in the game, things are going to be great because, oops, you have a 4/4 flyer and 3 extra life. So, yeah, pretty high pick, 5th, 6th. Do not sleep on these. These will make the format tick. Up next is a Snooping Newsy. Snooping Newsy is blue-black for a creature human rogue at common. It's a 2/2. When Snooping Newsy enters the battlefield, mill 2 cards. As long as there are 5 or more mana values among cards in your graveyard, Snooping Newsy gets +1/+1 and has lifelink. Can you play that card from exiled if it's not exiled by its own ability? I don't believe so, because it's part of the resolution of that effect. But I would have to check on that. So this is a 2/2 for 2 that mills 2 cards. Again, I do not care for the 5 or more mana values because you can't control that. As much as you think you might be able to control that, you can't control that. You just have to hope it happens. And if it happens late in the game, you get a 3/3 lifelink. That's not that exciting. This is very filler. You can probably wheel this, and I can definitely see just not even playing it unless I really want to be milling myself. I don't like this entire archetype of hoping your graveyard happens to have exactly the right cards in it. Up next is Soul of Emancipation. Soul of Emancipation is 4 green, white, blue for a creature avatar at rare. It's a 5/7. When Soul of Emancipation enters the battlefield, destroy up to 3 other target non-land permanents. For each of those permanents, its controller creates a 3/3 white angel creature token with flying. Cool. It's not quite the elephant, because I can't blow up my lands to give myself 3/3 elephants. You typically will not want to use this on your opponent's stuff. You'll want to use this on your stuff. You sack 3 1/1 citizens, and oops, you've got 13, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. You got 14, 16 power toughness on the battlefield. Oh yeah, Terastodon couldn't hit creatures. It could only hit lands, right? Yeah, this card's fantastic. You'll first pick this pretty highly. Again, as we talked about with Lord Xander, the exception being if this format turns out to be ludicrously fast, 7 might be a bit of a hit against it. I am hoping this format is not ludicrously fast. As I mentioned at the PPR, there were a couple of decks that suggested this format can be ludicrously fast. Let's hope it's not, and this is a strong first pick. Up next is Sparra's Adjudicators. Sparra's Adjudicators is 2 green, white, blue for a creature cat citizen at common. It's a 4/4. When Sparra's Adjudicators enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls can't attack or block until your next turn. Cool. Pay 2, exile, turn a land into a green, white, blue land. You can cast this from exile. 5th, 6th pick. Good card is good. One of them was definitely Graham's deck. Oh boy. Yeah, this is great. Again, you need these to make your deck tick. This is one of the best ways to do fixing in the format. They strongly remind me of the morphs from Khans of Tarkir, because late in the game, you just have a real good creature as well. So good card is good. 5th, 6th pick. Up next is Stimulus Package. Stimulus Package is 2 red-green for an enchantment at uncommon. When Stimulus Package enters the battlefield, create 2 treasure tokens. Sacrifice a treasure, create a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token. No. 4 mana, make 2 tokens is not exciting. I think there's better ways to make citizen tokens. I think there's better ways to make treasure tokens. I think there's better ways to spend treasure tokens. This costs an entire card in your deck. Like an entire card. You only get 23 of those. You only get 23 of those. So I'm pretty off of this. I can't imagine I ever play this. I'm going to put this at an F. We'll see, but I just feel like there's better ways to make treasures. There's better ways to make citizens. There's better ways to spend your treasures. So F for stimulus package. Up next is Syndicate Infiltrator. Syndicate Infiltrator is 2 blue-black for a creature, vampire, wizard at uncommon. It's a 3/3 flyer. As long as there are 5 or more mana values among cards in your graveyard, Syndicate Infiltrator gets +2/+2. 4 mana 3/3 flyer is okay. You can play that. And then if the stars align and it's a 5/5 flyer, awesome. But this one's actually just playable because it's a 3/3 flyer for 4. You can play that. It's still like a 6th through 8th pick, but you can play this one. You don't have to like hope that everything works out to make it playable. It is just playable, and then it's better. Probably going to be a hallmark of things I don't like in the format, because it's just one of those super high variance cards of like, haha, I'm crushing your face because things worked out perfectly for me, which is not what I want out of my strategy games. Up next is Tainted Indulgence. Tainted Indulgence is blue-black for an instant uncommon. Draw 2 cards, then discard a card, unless there are 5 or more mana values among cards in your graveyard. So 2 mana... Thirst? Or no, not Thirst, because those are draw 3, discard 2. Draw 2, discard 1. There's a card that's draw 2, discard 1, and I can't remember what it is. So this is 2 mana. This is 2 mana Think Twice, because you're drawing a card. I don't think you'll not play this. Chart a Course, kind of, yeah. Yeah, because Chart a Course was raid. Draw 2, otherwise draw 2, discard 1. Yeah, Chart a Course. I think you'll play this, but it's a Chart a Course that you can't, like, reliably chart the course. You are probably 90% of the time drawing 2, discarding 1, which means you're just cycling a card. It's just a cycler, right? Better in multiples? A little bit. I don't think it's going to be that hard to have a 2-drop in your graveyard. So it's not like this one's really adding to your mana value count. I don't know. I'm on like a 6th through 8th pick here. I want to draw cards. It's slightly better than cycling because you get to look at 2 cards, but I don't think it's close to Anticipate. Yeah, it's close to an Anticipate, I suppose. I don't know. I'm on like 6th through 8th pick here. I'm not playing it, but I'm also not super over the moon about it. Obviously goes up if we have things that care about drawing cards, especially at instant speed. Up next is Tolu's Clever Conductor. I hate the art on this card. I don't know why. It just doesn't look like... The art style doesn't fit. It's like Tron, and honestly kind of like Geiger-y looking. It's weird art. White or blue or black. For legendary creature human rogue at rare, it's a 3/1. When Toulouse enters the battlefield, it connives. Whenever you discard 1 or more cards, such as the one you connive with, exile them from your graveyard. When Toulouse dies, put the cards exiled with it into its owner's hand. Cool. 3 mana 3/1 that hopefully will be a 3 mana 4/2. You get to loot. And as long as that, or regardless of what the card was you discarded, even if it was a land, you're going to get to draw it someday when this 3/1 dies. Because guess what? 3/1s die. You either attack with them until they die, or you trade. Hopefully, well, probably not up with a 3-drop. But yeah, this card's good. I'm in like the 2nd, 3rd pick range. It's good. It's good. Especially if you have more connive and more ways of looting and more ways of discarding. Up next is Unleash the Inferno. Unleash the Inferno is 1 black, red, green for an instant at rare. Unleash the Inferno deals 7 damage to target creature or planeswalker. That's a lot. When it deals excess damage this way, destroy target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls with mana value less than or equal to the amount of excess damage. 4 mana, kill a creature. That's what it's doing 90% of the time. Because like I said, I've looked at the artifacts, they're not great. We've seen a couple of like scary-ish rare enchantments. This is 4 mana, kill a creature at instant speed, which means it is only a very, very high pick in the first or second pick range. Good card's good. Splash this in your 4-color decks, your 3-color decks, splashing black or splashing red or splashing green. Good card's good. First pick. Up next is Void Rend. Void Rend is white, blue, black for an instant at rare. This spell can't be countered. Destroy target non-land permanent. Well, hey, look, it's even cheaper than that one. First pick. Very good card. Uncounterable, doesn't terribly matter in limited. Kills anything. Kills planeswalkers. Kills creatures. Kills enchantments. Kills whatever. Very good card. First pick. Hey, look, Obscura got a good card. We've seen some good Obscura cards. Up next is Zeatora the Incinerator. Zeatora is 3 black, red, green for a legendary creature demon dragon at Mythic. It's a 6/6 flyer for 6. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, Zeatora the Incinerator deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target, and you create 3 treasure tokens. Okay. So every turn, one of your creatures has unblockable because you hurl it at your opponent's face. You could also kill off creatures, but like, let's say you have a 3/3. Sack your 3/3, 3 at their face. Next turn, you're doing 6 at their face. And then whatever else you want to sack that turn. This is a bomb. This is a first pick. Going to literally end games. Going to be awful to see on the other side of the battlefield. Very, 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 very good card. And you get 3 mana to continue filling your board up and doing whatever you feel like doing. Super, super, super good card. First pick. Up next is Zeatora's Envoy. Zeatora's Envoy is 1 black, red, green for a creature Viashino Warrior at rare. It's a 5/4 trample for 4. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, look at the top card of your library. You may play a land from the top of your library or cast a spell with mana value less than or equal to the damage dealt from the top of your library without paying its mana cost. If you don't, put the card into your hand. Notably, don't draw it. And it's got Blitz for 2 black, red, green. Of course, the first card with Blitz we see today has so many words on it that it doesn't tell us what Blitz does. Blitz is an alternate casting cost that gives the creature haste. When this creature dies, draw a card, and at the end of your turn, sack the creature. So it's kind of like dash, ball lightning, draw a card, sort of. This card's real good. It's real good and real stupid. If they don't block it, you're casting up to a 5-drop. Is it equal to or less than? Less than or equal to. You're casting up to a 5-drop off the top of your library. If they chump it, you're still casting something or playing a land off the top as long as it's a 4, a 3, a 2, or a 1, depending on how much trample went through. This card's stupid and a super ludicrously high first pick. And if you can't cast it, you still just draw. Technically not draw the card. How does one deal damage from the top of your library? It's really weirdly worded. You may play a land from the top of your library or cast a spell with mana value less than or equal to the damage dealt. Grammatically, there does not have to be a comma there. In conversation, comma, from the top of your library without paying its mana cost. It's weirdly worded. We're definitely in the era of Arena will do it for you. That's it for gold cards. Hopefully, that's the majority of words with books in them. Hopefully, the rest of the cards we have to do, because we started with gold, we still have all the rest to do. Hopefully, the rest have slightly less books on them. Let's take a quick look Yeah, let's just jam through artifacts and lands before we take a brief break here. On to the artifacts. We have Arc Splitter. Arc Splitter is 1 generic mana for an artifact equipment at uncommon. Equipped creature has pay 1. This creature deals 1 damage to target creature that it's blocking it. Equip 1. I don't think this is very good. It's very cheap to cast. It's very cheap to equip. And then your creatures sort of have like unblockable, because if your opponent blocks with an X5, you can say, cool, I tap 5 and deal 5 to it, and combat doesn't even happen. But you could also just play better cards. Because you have to draw this, you have to play it, you have to equip it, you have to have the mana to do it. There's so much that you have to do. It would be very funny on a Death Touch creature. It gets around shield, but like, so does a billion other things. So yeah, maybe sideboard against shield. Maybe, haha, I have a Death Touch creature. But again, you don't get to choose that they block with the shield creature. You don't get to choose that they block at all, which if they're not blocking, cool, but you don't get to choose what your opponent is blocking with. They get to decide everything that happens about this card. So I don't like it. I'm going to wheel it. I'm probably never going to play it. I'll let somebody else play it and see how they do, but I don't think it's very good because you don't control this card. Your opponent controls everything about this card. Up next is Brass Knuckles. Brass Knuckles is 4 generic mana for an artifact equipment at uncommon. When you cast this spell, copy it. So you get a token copy. Equipped creature has double strike as long as 2 or more equipment are attached to it. Equip 1. Nope. I am not paying 6 mana to give my first creature double strike. I could play better cards. I could play better creatures. I could play better equipment. I could play better cards than this. Cool flavor. Wild to see a card that just copies itself when you play it. But nope, not fitting in any deck I ever play. F. As a note, you only have to have 1 Brass Knuckle and 1 any other equipment, but no interest. Up next is Cement Shoes. Cement Shoes is 1 generic mana for an artifact equipment at uncommon. Equipped creature gets +3/+3 and has, at the beginning of your end step, tap this creature. Equipped creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step at all. Ever. Equip for 2. So, I feel like this is a massive flavor fail. Because Cement Shoes should be a white pacifism spell, right? It shouldn't be something that you equip your own creatures with to make them big. That makes no sense at all. So the play pattern with this is you pay 1 to play it, and then you pay 2 to throw it on your thing, and now your thing's big, and you attack with it. And then next turn, because you can't move them yet, because you'll end up tapping whatever you move them to, so you let it get frozen, and then next turn you move them to something else and attack them with it. And then the turn after that, the thing that originally had the shoes will finally untap. It's too much work. It's way too much work. It's an F. I never want to play it. It's way too much work. You can play better cards. There are so many good cards in every set that is ever printed these days. You are never struggling for playables. There's no reason to play this card. F. You can't unequip it for 2, right? Correct. Reconfigure was very unique in the ability to unequip. Up next is Chrome Cat. Why does it look like it's dying or being electrocuted? It looks horrible. It looks like it's in so much pain. All right. Chrome Cat is 3 generic mana for an artifact creature cat. At common, it's a 3/2. You move it in main phase 2. You could move it in main phase 2, but whatever you move it to is going to end up getting tapped. Or no, it doesn't tap. Yeah, at the beginning of your end step, tap this creature. So if you move it, whatever it's moved to is also going to get tapped. in addition to whatever you attacked with. So you probably want to keep it on whatever you attacked with because it's already tapped. So Chrome Cat is 3 generic mana for an artifact creature cat at common. It's a 3/2. When Chrome Cat enters the battlefield, scry 1. Super filler. I think there's better cards. I don't think there's artifact payoffs. I don't think there's cat payoffs. There's got to be better 3-drops than this for almost every deck. This is oh god, something went wrong. I decided on my colors in pack 3. So wheel it and probably don't play it. Up next is Getaway Car. Getaway Car is 3 generic mana for an artifact vehicle at rare. It's a 4/3 with haste. Whenever Getaway Car attacks or blocks, return up to 1 target creature that crewed it this turn to its owner's hand. Crew 1. Well, Crew 1. Crew 1 is one of the only okay crew costs for vehicles, really, unless the vehicle's insane. So this turns your citizens into 4/3s. You obviously don't return your citizen tokens. And if you do return something to get an ETB, that's pretty cool as well. But yeah, I think you just play this as a 4/3 that turns one of your 1/1s into 4/3s. I think this is a huge card for Naya, and I think most decks will play this. It's not first pick. It's definitely still a far cry from the Pain Trains, but it's pretty good. I would like third pick this, I think. Yeah, I think basically any deck will play this. As long as you're upgrading a creature into a 4/3, it seems decent. Up next is Gilded Pinions. Gilded Pinions is 2 generic mana for an artifact equipment at common. When Gilded Pinions enters the battlefield, make a treasure token. Equipped creature has flying, equip for 2. I never like Cobbled Wings or any of those effects. You lose to them sometimes, but like they've really got to put it together and it's got to do all the right things in the right order. This one gives you a treasure token to make up for the fact that it's costing more and or doesn't change power or toughness, but I still think I'm going to be pretty hard pressed to play this. I think there's just better cards. So wheel, and I don't think I'll play it usually. Obviously the play pattern is you're playing big stompy things that don't have trample. Well, now they have flying. Up next is Halo Scarab. Halo Scarab is 2 generic mana for an artifact creature insect at common. It's a 2/1. Pay 2. Exile it from your graveyard to make a treasure token. Here's an okay way to make a treasure, if that is something that you're looking for. Here's an okay, well, it's a far cry from okay way of fixing. There's much better ways of fixing, but if you want to, this is an option for you to fix. It's an option for you to have a super filler creature. You should be able to wheel this, though, I think. Slightly more playable in the treasure deck, but I still think you can wheel it. Up next is Luxior, Giada's Gift. Luxior, Giada's Gift is 1 generic mana for a legendary artifact equipment at Mythic. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each counter on it. Equipped permanent isn't a planeswalker and is a creature in addition to its other types. It's important that it tells us that our permanent is not a planeswalker, because of course in Limited, it's never a planeswalker. Equip planeswalker 1, equip 3. This card is awful. Awful. Absolute garbage. This is a commander card that found its way into a limited format. It is awful. In what way are you jamming a creature up with counters? I just don't see it. I don't see it. The blue-white deck cares about putting counters on things, but you're not jamming them all on one creature. This card is awful unless you happen to have a planeswalker, in which case, congrats. You opened 2 mythics. Well done. Yeah, this card is an F for me. I am never playing this card unless I have a planeswalker. I am never picking it unless I already have a planeswalker. This is for Commander or Jank Constructed and shouldn't be in Limited. Up next is Ominous Parcel. Ominous Parcel is 1 generic mana for an artifact at common. Pay 2, tap, sack Ominous Parcel. Search your library for a basic land. Reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. Pay 5 tap, sack Ominous Parcel. Deals 4 damage, target creature. Put it into your hand. Well, you know, it slices, it dices. It fixes you if you need to fix, and it probably kills something if you need to kill something later. I don't think you're going out of your way to play this card. I don't think you need to feel ashamed if you play this card. You play it to fix, you play it... You probably don't play this to kill. You probably don't play this because, uh-oh, I need to deal 4 damage or something. You play this to fix, and then, oops, you drew it at turn 7. Well, now you've got a 4 damage for 6 mana spell. It's okay, but I think you can probably wheel this, like 8th pick, kind of on the end. You don't have to spend a super, super, super high pick on this. Up next is Paragon of Modernity. Paragon of Modernity is 4 generic mana for an artifact creature Angel Warrior at common. It's a 2/2 flyer. Pay 3 and it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. If exactly 3 colors of mana were spent, put a +1/+1 counter on it instead. This feels good. Like, as long as you're building your deck correctly, you shouldn't have a problem getting 3 colors of mana. If you haven't played Khans of Tarkir, if you haven't played a true 3-color set, it's typically not that wild to have your 3 colors on turn 3. And definitely not on, like, turn 5. So the fact that this is a mana sink for 3 mana to turn this into a 3/3 flyer, and then a 4/4 flyer, and then a 5/5 flyer, and if you ever happen to have 6 mana perfectly split, putting 2 counters for 6 mana, this thing's going to get out of control, and it's a common. The slight downside is that if you can't get that counter on it quickly, you are overpaying for a 2/2 flyer. But I like this card. I like this card a fair bit. I'm going to pick it and try to play it a little bit higher than maybe I should at the start of the format. Like 5th, 6th, 7th pick, maybe. Definitely pre-wheel for me to start with this because I think people are going to undervalue it. And then we'll see where it goes from there. But I like mana sinks, and this is a mana sink that permanently, like, affects the board. So I'm in on this. I'm in. Up next is Quick Draw Dagger. Quick Draw Dagger is 3 generic mana for an artifact equipment at common. It's got flash. When Quick Draw Dagger enters the battlefield, attach it to target creature you control. The creature gains first strike until end of turn. And then it's just a piece of crap equipment. +1/+1, equip 1. So it's a very expensive Sure Strike. Not a Sure Strike, because that's +3/+0. It's a very expensive Kindled Fury that happens to stick around having extraordinarily minor impact on the battlefield. That's a wheel. The question is whether or not it's, like, playable. Whether you put it in your deck. Yeah, where's the draw? And I think I'm starting not putting this in my deck. I think I would put this in the totally medium combat trick pile, which means you probably don't play it unless you have a real space for it. So wheel and may not make the deck. Up next is Scuttling Butler. Scuttling Butler is 3 generic mana for an artifact creature constructed uncommon. It's a 4/1. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control 2 or more multicolored permanents, Scuttling Butler gains double strike until end of turn. So it's a 4/1 for 3, which is awful. But then if you have 2 multicolored permanents, it's a 4/1 double strike for 3, which is probably stupid, but also real vulnerable. I hate that 1 toughness. I really hate that 1 toughness. Oh, and only on your turn, too. Oh, this blocks awfully. I suspect this is probably bad, especially from like a consistency perspective. I think I'll start wheeling these, and I don't think I'm going to start playing them, and I'll see how they do for my opponent. We all know that my opponent's going to go 1-drop, multicolored 2-drop, scuttling butler, multicolored 4-drop, and hit me for 8 on turn. Well, no, it'd be more than 8. Let's say they're 2 drops, a 2/2. Hit me for 10 on turn 4. Yeah, it blocks fine once. Yeah, I'm not going to start playing this. We'll see how it goes. I suspect it's going to lead to some really obnoxious early game plays, but over average, you probably shouldn't play it. So I'm going to go with wheel, not play. Up next is Suspicious Bookcase. I've seen people talking about this as though it's not a reprint, which is weird. Suspicious Bookcase is 2 generic mana for an artifact creature wall at uncommon, last seen, I believe, in M19, maybe M20. It's an 0/4 with Defender, pay 3 tap, target creature can't be blocked this turn. This card was okay last time we saw it. Last time we saw it was still, what I would call pre-modern Magic. Modern limited Magic. It was playable. Limited games don't tend to end up getting board stalled lately. I feel like they've actively made a decision to make games just kind of snowball out of control until somebody dies, which means that Suspicious Bookcase may not be as good as it was before. And it wasn't great before. It was just kind of playable, and then you would sneak through like a Dreadmaw or something. So we'll see how Suspicious Bookcase plays. It depends on how snowbally this format is. It depends on how fast this format is. I think you can probably wheel it if you do want to try some sneaky, suspicious shenanigans. The decks that want this are the ones that have 6/6s in them, but maybe no trample or flying on them. Not a dragon, but rather just like a big rhino. And then you want to sneak them through with this. So wheel it. Play it in the right decks, and we'll see if this format is friendly to it or not. Up next is Unlicensed Hearse. Unlicensed Hearse. These vehicles are hard to grok what they are. Is 2 generic mana for an artifact vehicle at rare. It's a star. Tap, exile up to 2 target cards from a single graveyard. Unlicensed Hearse's power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards exiled with it. Crew 2. So very importantly, don't crew this until you tap it first. Otherwise, it will be a 0/0 and die. So you play this on turn 2, and then you probably don't get to exile anything because there's probably not anything in the graveyard on turn 2. Certainly not 2 cards. But eventually this starts getting pretty stupidly big for a crew 2. But how long does that take? That'll be the interesting thing, eh? Cards start going to the graveyard regularly turn 4? So like turn 5, we have a 2/2 vehicle? That's not good enough to crew 2. We can hope that by turn 6, we can maybe make this into a 4/4 vehicle. That's okay for crew 2. It's decent for crew 2. I think this is worse than the getaway car. And I'll need to see the play pattern, I think, because I think it's too slow. I think it's just too slow. And I think it's the thing I hate about cards where you don't get to control if this works or not. You don't get to go, snap, every graveyard has 20 cards in it. I have tons of stuff to exile. There's plenty of games where stuff just doesn't go to the graveyard. And you have played this 2 mana do nothing. Good job. I don't think that's going to help you win. So, yeah, I don't know where I want to do this. I don't think I want to play this to start, but I want to see how it works. I want to see how it works, because you don't really want... It's not like you're going to be in the Connive deck and playing this and exiling your own stuff, because the Connive deck is also hoping to get the 5 mana values in and has ways of returning stuff. So you don't want to be forcing your own Connive stuff. So I don't think you even want to build around this. I don't know. Let's see where this goes. I'm going to start not picking it because I think it's too slow. And then we'll see where it actually ends up. I'm very curious about it. That's it for artifacts. As I said, the artifacts in general aren't very good. On to lands, we have a cycle of duels here. We have Botanical Plaza up first. They all ETB tap. They all tap for one of the 2 colors, and all of them you can pay 2 and their 2 colors, tap them and sacrifice them to draw a card. I like these quite a bit. They're fixing. They are not in the land slot, they're in the common slot. So you might see multiples in a pack, and you're not guaranteed to even see one. But yeah, they're tapped duels, which is great, and way late in the game, if you don't need that color of mana, if you don't need all that mana, you can draw a card, which is great. I flood out all the time. I would love to draw a card. These are going to be relatively higher picks in a 3-color format. We are looking in the 5th, 6th pick range. You need to pick these. You can't just wheel them and pick them up later because you won't see them. But yeah, they're good. 5th, 6th pick. This is also a cycle. We have Broker's Hideout. Broker's Hideout is a common land. When Broker's Hideout enters the battlefield, sacrifice it. Seems pretty bad. Play it and it goes away. When you do, search your library for a basic forest, plains, or island card. Put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. You gain 1 life. So these are sort of cool because they're fixing that probably only people in that family are going to want. If this was Evolving Wilds, because it kind of plays like Evolving Wilds, but if this was Evolving Wilds, every deck wants it. But this card, probably only the brokers want it. Maybe somebody who's playing 2 of the colors of the 3 and wants the other splash, maybe. But it's kind of cool that it's fixing that's sort of reserved for you if you happen to be playing the brokers. I do dislike that I'm going to have to, like, in every draft, I'm going to have to read the card to read for, like, is this one blue? This one's green, white, blue. Okay, this is the green, white, blue one because there's no mana symbols. There's none of that. But yeah, these are going to be relatively high picks as well because they're going to help you find your fixing early. They're lower than the dual lands. They're more in the 6th-ish pick, 7th-ish pick range. And again, you also probably want to know that you're in this family or at least extremely adjacent to this family to pick them. Cabaret Courtyard is another of them. Jetmir's Garden is a rare cycle of lands. They are non-basic but have land types, so they are mountain forest plains in this case. They tap because they are mountain forest plains. They tap for red, green, or white. They ETB tapped, and they have cycling 3. They're the other 5 of the triomes from Ikoria. These are going to be decent. These are going to help you fix. These are going to help you play your 3-color decks. They might help you splash, etc. And if you really don't need them, you can cycle them. They're going to be a relatively high pick. They're higher than the duels, so I would go in the 4th, 5th pick range for the rare tri-lands. Maestro's Theater, another of those. Obscura Storefront, another of those. Racer's Ring. Rafine's Tower is another of the rares. The Obscura one. Riveteer's Outlook. Skybridge Towers. Sparra's Headquarters, Tramway Station, Waterfront District, Xander's Lounge, Zayator's Proving Ground. Finally, we have a Wrestling Ring and Magic. And that's it for all the lands. No one-off lands. They're all part of these 3 cycles. So YouTube, that's going to wrap it up for the gold, multicolored, etc., yada yada, almost a 2-hour video there. Wow. The other ones will be a lot shorter. But us on Twitch, we're going to continue on. YouTube, I will see you in the next video.